Speaking test instructions. The speaking test is 20 minutes. There are 8 tasks in the speaking test. Please try your best to answer all the questions.
Start speaking now. Time is up. 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 Marcus, I understand you're looking to buy your first car, which is an exciting but potentially overwhelming step. Nevertheless, with some structured thinking, you can make a confident decision. First and foremost, establish a realistic budget before you start shopping. This should include not just the purchase price, but also ongoing costs such as insurance, fuel, maintenance, and potential loan payments. Furthermore, I'd recommend getting pre-approved for financing if you need a loan, as this clarifies what you can afford and strengthens your negotiating position. When selecting a vehicle, prioritize your needs over wants. Despite the appeal of sports cars, a practical choice that aligns with your lifestyle is usually smarter for a first car. Consider factors such as fuel efficiency, reliability ratings, and whether the size suits your typical usage. Additionally, research common issues for models you're interested in by reading owner reviews and reliability reports. Once you've narrowed your options, take multiple test drives. During these, pay attention to handling, visibility, comfort, and noise levels. Meanwhile, don't rush this process. Test driving different models back-to-back highlights their differences. For used cars, have any vehicle inspected by an independent mechanic before buying. Although this might cost around $150, it could save thousands in unexpected repairs. Finally, be prepared to negotiate, and don't feel pressured to accept dealer add-ons you don't need. Remember, buying a car should be exciting rather than stressful. Last summer, I tried authentic Ethiopian cuisine for the first time at a small restaurant that had recently opened in my neighborhood. The experience was completely different from anything I'd encountered before. First of all, the meal was served on a large circular platter lined with injera, a spongy sourdough flatbread with a slightly tangy flavor. Instead of using utensils, we were instructed to tear pieces of the injera and use them to scoop up the various stews and vegetable dishes. Furthermore, the flavor profiles were uniquely complex, featuring spice blends like berbera that I'd never tasted before. The most challenging dish was kitfo, which consisted of raw minced beef mixed with spiced butter. Despite my initial hesitation about consuming raw meat, our server explained that this was a traditional delicacy, so I decided to step outside my comfort zone and try a small portion. Surprisingly, the rich, buttery flavor and the warm spices made it much more enjoyable than I anticipated. The communal dining style was also fascinating, as everyone ate from the same platter, which created a sense of shared experience. Additionally, the restaurant owner visited our table to explain the cultural significance of different dishes, enhancing our appreciation of the meal. I would absolutely try Ethiopian cuisine again. In fact, I've returned to that restaurant several times since then and have even attempted to recreate some of the simpler dishes at home. This experience taught me that pushing past initial unfamiliarity with food can lead to wonderful new culinary discoveries. This illustrated scene depicts a lively small-town street where several pedestrians are crossing at a crosswalk while the traffic light displays a green walking signal. On the left side, a group of 4 people, including a woman in a pink top walking a small dog, 2 men in light-colored shirts, and an elderly woman with a handbag, are carefully making their way across the zebra crossing. Meanwhile, on the sidewalk to the right, a father and young child are looking upward at a red and white kite that has become entangled in a large tree. Not only does this create a charming juxtaposition of everyday activities, but it also captures 2 different perspectives of urban life: the structured routine of following traffic rules versus the spontaneous mishaps of recreational pastimes. The background features several quintessential small-town establishments, most notably a public library and a hair salon, with parked cars lining the street. Furthermore, the artist has created a warm, nostalgic atmosphere through the use of soft colors and a clear blue sky with fluffy clouds and birds, which effectively evokes a sense of community and peaceful coexistence. What makes this scene particularly interesting is how it seamlessly blends elements of civic order with moments of everyday life challenges, creating a narrative that resonates with universal experiences in public spaces. Initially, the pedestrians crossing the street will safely reach the opposite sidewalk, whereas the father and child with the kite will continue retrieving it from the tree. Subsequently, the traffic light will change from green to yellow and eventually red, while simultaneously, vehicles that are currently stopped will begin to move forward once the crosswalk is clear. Meanwhile, the small dog being walked by the woman in pink will likely become interested in the kite situation and pull slightly on its leash. Furthermore, the elderly woman with the handbag will presumably enter the public library to return or borrow books, while the others might continue walking toward the hair salon or other destinations in this quaint town center. Despite the temporary commotion caused by the kite being caught in the tree, the peaceful atmosphere of this small town scene will quickly return to normal. In conclusion, once the kite is successfully retrieved, the young child will undoubtedly express excitement, and consequently, the father and child might relocate to a more open area to resume their kite flying activity. Emma, I understand you're considering converting our family property to a timeshare, but I strongly believe keeping and renovating the vacation home is the better choice. First and foremost, preserving this property maintains our direct connection to our family heritage. Unlike a timeshare conversion, which would fundamentally change the character and accessibility of the property, renovation allows us to honor our family's history while modernizing for practical purposes. Furthermore, keeping the property offers much greater flexibility than a timeshare arrangement. Instead of being restricted to scheduled usage times, we would have the freedom to visit whenever we want, including spontaneous weekend getaways or extended stays. Additionally, we could accommodate larger family gatherings during holidays, something that would be impossible with the limited timeshare scheduling. Although the renovation costs might seem substantial initially, they represent a one-time investment compared to the ongoing conversion fees and maintenance charges associated with timeshares. Moreover, the property has significant potential as a source of rental income when we're not using it, especially if we upgrade it thoughtfully. Consequently, it could eventually become self-sustaining or even profitable, whereas timeshares typically depreciate in value. Another consideration is control over the property's management. With a timeshare conversion, we would surrender decision-making about maintenance standards and rules to professional management. Therefore, while a timeshare conversion might seem like a way to reduce maintenance responsibilities, keeping and renovating the property is clearly superior. Don't you think continuing our family tradition makes more sense? Emma, while I appreciate your sentimental attachment to the property, I believe selling it represents the most practical and beneficial choice for both of us right now. First and foremost, selling provides an immediate financial benefit that we can each use according to our current life situations. Unlike keeping the property or converting it to a timeshare, selling eliminates the ongoing financial burden of maintenance, property taxes, and unexpected repairs. Furthermore, the substantial sum we would receive offers opportunities for diversifying our investments in ways that align with our individual goals and risk tolerances. Additionally, we must honestly acknowledge the practical challenges of co-owning this property long-term. Despite our good relationship, geographical distance, and our busy schedules make regular usage and management difficult. Moreover, our different family situations mean we might have conflicting needs regarding usage times and property decisions. Although the emotional attachment is understandable, the financial responsibilities and potential friction over management decisions could actually strain our relationship over time. In contrast, selling allows us to preserve our positive memories without these burdens. Consequently, we could use a small portion of the proceeds to create something meaningful that honors our family history, such as a professional photo book of family gatherings at the property or a special family reunion. While timeshare conversion might seem like a middle ground, it typically involves significant conversion fees with minimal return on investment. Therefore, selling represents the cleanest, most financially sound decision that allows us both to move forward positively. What do you think? Josh, I wanted to talk about something that's been bothering me lately. I've noticed that the kitchen and living room have been getting quite messy, with dishes piling up and food being left out overnight. Although I understand we all have busy schedules, the current situation is making it difficult for me to use these shared spaces comfortably. First and foremost, I want to emphasize that I value our friendship and living arrangement. Nevertheless, I think we need to address this issue before it creates tension between us. The main concern for me is that when dishes pile up, it makes cooking difficult as there aren't clean utensils or space available. Furthermore, food left out overnight has started attracting insects, which could become a bigger problem if we don't address it. Additionally, when friends visit, I feel embarrassed about the state of our common areas. I recognize that we might have different standards of cleanliness based on how we grew up. Consequently, I'm not expecting perfection, just a reasonable level of tidiness that allows us both to enjoy our shared space. Perhaps we could agree on some basic guidelines, such as washing dishes within 24 hours of use and wiping down counters after cooking. I'm happy to do my part consistently and would appreciate similar effort from you. What are your thoughts on this? I'm open to hearing your perspective. Josh, I've been thinking about our apartment situation, and I'd like to propose implementing a cleaning schedule that could make our shared living space more comfortable for both of us. First and foremost, I recognize that we likely have different cleanliness standards based on our upbringings and preferences. Although neither approach is inherently right or wrong, finding common ground is essential when sharing living space. My proposal involves creating a simple cleaning schedule that divides responsibilities fairly while accounting for our different schedules. For instance, we could alternate weekly kitchen duties like washing dishes and wiping counters, while each taking permanent responsibility for certain tasks that we don't mind doing. Additionally, we could establish basic guidelines, such as cleaning dishes within 24 hours and doing a quick 15-minute shared space tidy-up before bed. To make this practical, I've drafted a potential schedule that we can modify together. Consequently, we'd both have input into the final arrangement rather than having it feel imposed by one person. Moreover, the schedule could include some flexibility for busy periods, with the understanding that we'll communicate proactively if we need to adjust temporarily. I believe this approach would eliminate the uncertainty about expectations that often leads to roommate conflicts. What are your thoughts on trying a structured approach like this? I'm open to adjusting any part of this proposal to better fit your preferences. I believe that mandatory retirement ages are generally counterproductive, though certain accommodations for transition may be appropriate in specific contexts. First and foremost, fixed retirement ages fail to account for the tremendous variation in individual capabilities and health status among older workers. While some might experience significant decline by their mid-60s, others remain fully capable of high-performance work well into their 70s or beyond. Furthermore, with continuing advances in healthcare and increased longevity, chronological age has become an increasingly poor proxy for capacity. Consequently, forcing retirement based solely on birth date rather than performance represents an outdated approach that wastes valuable human capital. From an economic perspective, mandatory retirement policies create several challenges. For individuals, they can cause financial hardship, particularly as traditional pension systems become less common. Additionally, economies facing demographic shifts toward older populations benefit from keeping experienced workers engaged in the workforce. Moreover, the institutional knowledge and mentoring capabilities of seasoned employees often prove difficult to replace when they exit abruptly. Nevertheless, certain accommodations may be appropriate as workers age. For instance, more flexible arrangements, reduced hours, or transition to advisory roles can allow continued contribution while accommodating changing capabilities or preferences. The decision to retire should ideally reflect a thoughtful balance of personal, financial, and professional factors rather than external mandate. Therefore, rather than requiring retirement at a specific age, organizations and societies benefit more from creating flexible pathways that respect individual differences while supporting dignified transitions when appropriate. Hey Mark, you won't believe what I just stumbled upon during my lunch break. I was walking down Eastern Boulevard, not far from my office, when I spotted the most extraordinary building I've ever seen, a massive structure entirely shaped like a classical guitar. Not only does it perfectly mimic the instrument's distinctive curves, but the architects have ingeniously incorporated actual guitar strings stretching from a giant sound hole to the neck. What really sets this masterpiece apart, besides its obvious musical inspiration, is the stunning contrast between the dark blue-gray exterior and the warm wooden-colored trim that follows every contour of the guitar's shape. Inside the body of the instrument, there are several floors with ornate balconies and intricately carved details that remind me of those Art Nouveau buildings you always talk about. Despite its whimsical concept, the structure doesn't look tacky whatsoever. On the contrary, it's executed with such precision and attention to detail that it left me completely awestruck. Given your passion for unconventional design, I immediately thought you'd appreciate this remarkable fusion of music and architecture. In fact, I've taken several photos, which I'll send you right away, though they hardly do justice to seeing it in person.